Eric Burgess here with Music Marketing TV, and today we're going to be putting two reverbs on the master channel, specifically the PSP Nexcellence and the PSP 2445. We're going to be looking at that. I have composed with this on 100% of the time a intro that sounds extremely cinematic and epic. Here's what it sounds like. Yeah, so that's where we end up. Very, very interesting process working with something like this. So if you've never worked with stacked verbs before, and in this case, just with a verb in general, you can get some really inspiring results, because things like saw waves that are, usually just considered the starting point are suddenly extremely interesting right out the gate. Sounds tend to be longer, and so it's interesting to play fast phrases and see how the mushiness of them sort of changes them. A lot of really, really cool creative times. So the general idea behind this is Nexcellence is providing the color box. It's a spring reverb emulation. You can choose between spring sets and all these things. And I put it on there just to basically be an interesting color as a reverb. And so everything's going through that 100% mixed. And then that hits the 2445, which you can think of as a much more typical reverb that is going to be like, it aims to be lush and full sounding and not like filter everything like, say, a spring reverb would do and sort of change it to some characteristic. This one seeks to emulate a space more, where this one's sort of a much more creative endeavor. So putting these together gives us some pretty interesting results. And the first thing I did was, so with these two, is I set this one statically and I automated this one. So the way I achieve it sounding like it's coming forward is, first I automate the mix down on this one, on the 2445, and I automate the time down. And it's interesting because normally when you automate time knobs, especially when they're discrete, you get some really nasty artifacts, things like weird timing things, clicking sounds, stuff like that. But with the PSP stuff, that is not an issue. So it's actually really, really fun to move the time around. So for example, if I play it, you can see we're here at 4. It's kicking up. Nothing. No artifacts at all. Yeah. So there are, okay, so to start us off here, so those are the two things that are moving that make it sound closer. And we'll take a little bit of a look at the instrumentation that I chose so that you can see sort of how I got what I got. But again, we're moving these two down, and then you're going to want to set it stereo to stereo if you're going to feed it in something stereo and expect something stereo out. So that's what I went ahead and set up here. There is one setting that you want to make sure you have right just out the gate, and you always kind of want to pay attention to this when you're using the 2445, is the input-output area right here. You want stereo to stereo. And after that, we're going to go ahead and dive into this. So let's go ahead, let's bypass the 2445 and just listen to the Nexcellence. That's what we have right now. And if we were to go to a section of the track, say where the bass and the brass come in, there's a couple of interesting options that I always like to fiddle with here. So the first thing I was thinking about was, how long should I make the decay time? Do I want a really long decay time or a shorter decay time? I went for a very long one. If we bring it down, well, when you stop, you can really hear it, but during this long section, it's not really going to matter. This is something that's going to be more decided by stuff like this. So if we go ahead and just smear all that out, blends a little bit better. And we're going to hit a second phase of smearing. And so I figured, hey, if we're going to go reverb, let's just go all in. So I just made really long decay times on both of these, 3 seconds, 5.4 seconds, and away we go. And from here, we have this spring set and a couple really interesting, I view it as basically filter options. So you have shiny, dense, and sparse. And if I were to go ahead and just change these at times will have almost no impact, and at other times will have a very big impact. If we go over here. let's check out sparse. See a darker tone on that one, and then we go to shiny. This is the one I picked because that high end coming forward like that to me was important, so I kept that. And then here we also have our spring set, and this is another one that I treat kind of like this one. You give it a few listens and decide which one you like the most. I went for the combined, but you could go for a specific spring set. And you hear that bubbling sound that goes through, that's being imparted by the spring reverb. So if you ever want a texture like that, which could be great for like edgy moments, this would be a way to get that. And if we go ahead and go to the first spring set, that bubbly texture there too, you can hear how it's different than the first one, than spring set 2, because I did it backwards. Then from there, you can sort of decide which one you want if that's important to you. I went for the combined because I just like this one the most. Just right out the gate too, that brass is a lot more forward with this one than the others. So that was the general look around for this. There was a little bit of messing around with the color and things, but the most important moves were those moves. And then after that, I follow up into the 2445, where some interesting things are happening. First, I wanted to start off very airy, right? In the mist, and then come forward from the mist. So obviously the best way to do that is just dial the reverb all the way up to max and have a long decay time. Oh, let's turn this on. There you go. Kind of crazy how impactful it is. So this is coming down over time, which is and that's actually what this automation right here is. It's just coming down, whoop, and then over here we're much clearer. But I'm actually just revealing the spring set. So once we get rid of right here, if I were to automate both verbs off and then hit like the drop or whatever happens, this is where I bring in like some really intense beat, then it would really have an impact because we're coming off of two like totally drenched verbs. And so removing those is going to be really nice. But after that, we bring down the mix, but we also automate the time value down. And it's discrete too, which is always super interesting because normally when you automate something like this, you get all kinds of weird artifacts and stuff, but the PSP stuff doesn't do that. And so it's really, really useful to be able to automate. So I'm actually moving this along with the mix as we go. Start at 4 seconds and we start going our way down here. So it's actually much shorter also when we get here for what is remaining. And that also plays a role in making it sound closer. And there's no artifacts or anything like this. I was really impressed by this. This is like really cool. Because normally there's something you can tell. I don't know how they did it. There must be like some sort of overlapping buffer or something that takes care of it because it's extremely transparent. I really like it. Reflections I brought way down. I considered automating this too. It could be another interesting one to automate to make it sound even bigger over here and less big over here, but still maintain that verb sound, which is ironically something you're usually trying to get rid of. So yeah, that is the setup for this. And I can't remember if I said that, but you always want to check your setting down here. I'm always forgetting because it's usually closed. So if you open this, you want to take a look at that. If things are coming out mono or sort of strange to you, that's probably the setting you're looking at. They have some interesting modulation options. I messed with a whole bunch. They wound up just not playing a super big role in the sound. They actually did at one point. They just wound up not mattering really much towards the end. And then you can, of course, pick an EQ curve in those things. But for this, these reverbs are extremely nice reverbs, great emulations. And when you stack them, they just provide a lot of inspiration. So let's dive into the sounds a little bit and then we'll call it good. So starting off, the very first thing I wanted to know what it would sound like was what if I run just a straight up saw wave through this. So let's go ahead, let's bypass these. And this is what it was like dry. I have not heard it really dry because I did the whole thing with the reverb on the entire time. But we have here. So this was the first thing I was like, what is this going to sound like when I run it through these things? And it's like, it's pretty cool how, I mean, it's verb. So it's kind of what I expect it to be. But especially when you start playing lower notes and things, it becomes extremely epic. And I wound up separating the low notes out because they were becoming way too much. And I put them with a brass section instead. And I also created a separate harmony for that. So those are layered up. That was before. So pretty nice side effects there. That you get the nice softening that reverb can do. So that was it. Now at the beginning, I have this up and down thing. I have a filter, low pass specifically, that's slowly opening up, which is why it's not really there. There are some cellos here at the beginning that are responsible for making all that sort of mystifying high-end stuff. That stuff. And if you go ahead and drench that in verb, give it a sec. It comes forward. This was also kind of an unexpected result because I didn't do anything to the cello stuff to make it take that long. So that was just sort of, I just find that an interesting result. I thought it would come forward a lot faster. But anyways, some cello stuff. There's a little choir rise here through the chords. The same chord progression the whole way through. That's a choir. Bring in the brass. I wanted to go gently. I probably could achieve a little more gently. I'm considering adding a small boom there, I think could work. And then the thing that really sells it is the filters opening up with the brass sounds, and the that bass sound right there also has its own filter. So it also opens quite a bit here. Very bright. And then there is a timpani roll that's just going, and then it reaches a climax here, and then I have a mute note that brings it down. So that's a little bit on the instrumentation, orchestration, how I sort of picked things, why I picked the things that I did. The saw wave thing sort of drove the whole process. I came up with a cool chord progression, and then from there we got cooking. And the entire time that this was going, I had those reverbs on, and I just sort of wanted to see where they would take me, to let their inspiration flow. And that was it. If you have any questions about this, feel free to let me know. If you make something cool using a similar process, I'd be interested to check it out. And have a blessed day.